Late, you're a
Oh
failure.
no, that
Late,
was I swear that was on the same time. I
was it
swear
really?
that was the first time in 8 weeks that we've like clapped at the same time.
Well, there is definitely a bit of a lag then because on mine you were a solid second behind me. So
Oh man.
we'll
All
see.
right, maybe we'll never get it right then. But that
Eh,
I was like, holy smokes, that sounded awesome.
not till we do an in-person episode at least.
That's right.
So this week we have a fun story, a fun uh, tale that is brought to us by an old client of mine. Uh, you want to tell her? Or you want me to tell it? You've probably heard it
It's your
as well.
client, you know, and
Fair.
he was both of ours, but yeah, it was a good one.
So,
Oldie but a goodie.
when I started training, I moved to the Columbus area and started working at a large commercial gym, and then I ended up moving to a slightly smaller gym. And while there, we had to really push for ourselves. We had to sell our own training, find our own clients. Whereas at the large commercial gym, that was kind of done for us. So very different landscapes there as far as the training goes. All that to say, you had to earn your business, right? You didn't eat what you didn't kill, so to speak, and that's a daunting task. But I met this guy, John Murphy, who's the client that we're talking about, and I'd say we'll run through this little trial session here and see what you think of my training services. He was kind enough to buy a package of training following that. And we get to working for some time, and it was probably I don't know, five ish sessions in. And he goes, "You know why I picked you, Dave? Do you know why I picked you as my coach?" So I'll be honest. And for those listening, John is the jokester's jokester. I mean, the funny man, the sarcastic guy. Getting a straight answer out of him is, next to impossible if you know him.
Never. Yeah.
So I said, "Oh boy, I can't wait to hear what kind of smart ass comment he's going to throw my way here." But I'm ready for it. And I go, "Why did you pick me, John?" He goes, "Because out of all the other coaches here, you're the only one that actually watches the client working out." And I said, "Well, thank you, but ouch. That's a low bar to, have to hurdle over." And sure enough, I looked around the room. Won't say any names of the facility or the coaches, but there was a lady coach who had a client in front of her doing some overhead pressing and lunging superset, and she's literally sitting on the counter scrolling through her phone. And I was like, ugh, ugh. And then you see another guy on the leg press, and the coach, has his arm on the back of the leg press, just kind of resting there, uh, talking with him and looking over at other people on machines. And it's like, ooh, ugh. It's like, what a sad state we're in if that's the bar is a coach just paid attention to get your business. That's an unfortunately low bar to have to hurdle over. But I was appreciative for his honesty. And it just got me thinking, it's about dotting your I's and crossing your T's in this field and doing the little things at a high level. And so that was his share, and I wanted to share it because I think a lot of coaches, whether new or experienced, kind of have that. I don't know. I'm seeing that a lot. Just
Yeah.
not non-floor awareness, and that's at the place we used to work, you get raked over the coals for that. If you're standing in spot A versus spot B and you can't see this rack or that dumbbell, oh, you're going to hear about it. You are going to hear about it in the play-by-play review. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but that's interesting too because I think that now that I've been in a couple of different places, I think that's the most important thing more than anything now. And especially now at my next place, and I've learned more about my awareness of like I'm not by myself anymore, right? So now I'm in a position where I have to be coached and learn from other people, and they can kind of help me with my mistakes and different things. And it's been nice to be aware of like that piece of just the small fact of trying to put everyone, if you have a group of people, trying to put them all in the same place, or if I'm coaching them, they're all going to be in front of me, so I don't have to like turn my head and look in different directions while I'm coaching. And we call it like Yoda coaching at the gym, but it's something that I've taken and kind of tried to run with, and it's something that like just has opened my eyes a lot. And I know if I didn't really have the opportunities and the great people that I've worked with, I wouldn't know those things. And it's hard too. And our field is so strange where you could just come off. You don't even need a certification, or you need a certification, but it's like, whatever. You could get that from one test over one weekend. All you got to do is graduate high school and you can be a certified personal trainer, and you can work wherever you want, and you can have a trainer that's super high tech, super into all like the minutia of different things and shin angles and whatever you could get into, and you'll have a coach that just is getting everything off TikTok or is on their phone the entire time, or there's a lot of this differences and discrepancies of what this field is too. So yeah, I don't know. I definitely think that's a big piece of this though, and that's a big piece of the field is just when you're personal training somebody, you should have their full attention, and I should have, the awareness to know that that is going on while I'm working with that person for the 30 minutes you have, for the hour you have, whatever the case is. Excuse me, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you brought up a couple of interesting uh, points that I kind of could get sidetracked into, and one of them is training teams and training individuals. Vastly different skill sets required by the coach, right? I mean,
Mhm.
keeping track of 15 youth athletes versus one adult, totally different beasts. But I mean, it's equally important that both the groups and the individual obviously have all of your attention. So,
Yeah,
um,
but even say like even think of like if you have four adult clients,
mhm.
because most of the time a lot of people aren't going to make their money. If you're a trainer like us, you're not going to make your money going one on one with somebody unless it's a pro athlete or somebody that has a lot of money to spend on that time. But most of the time, it's going to be a small group, a semi private setting, and they're going to want their own individualized programs and things. So it's for them. But you also have to be able to coach all those things and use the space well and those kind of things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing you brought up, um, oh gosh, I just lost it. I was so present listening to what you were
Sorry.
saying, I
Yeah,
lost it.
you brought up like the differences between like coaching a small group and a big group and those kind of things, and yeah, I just kind of brought that into this. We call them small things, but in my eyes, I think they're big things, and I think that all you can get really in depth with people, but that should be after you've already had that contact point and after you've already built that relationship with them and they understand how much you care.
You were talking about the how low the barrier to entry in this field is,
Yeah.
which is a double edged sword. I mean, it's nice in that it's not like going to be a doctor where it takes almost a decade of schooling to do this. It's nice that you can get into it, but the downside is it's such a saturated field now. Um, and I want to really be clear to those listening. I'm not bashing anyone that is trying to get into this field and lacking experience, but wants to gain experience. Everybody has to start somewhere.
Mhm.
But I think you and I, certainly I, all thought this. As soon as we got our certs, as soon as we got our degrees, like I can write the best program. I'm ready to go. And it's like, oh, there's so much to learn. It's like such
Absolutely.
a long journey. So, yeah, to clients out there looking for a coach or a trainer, just because someone went and got their certification, I mean, you should look at the issued date on it, and if it was just 2 days ago from the weekend, maybe see what other coaches are around potentially. And I mean, there's
Yeah,
certifications for anything, right? You can get
exactly.
TRX certified, you can get boot camp certified. There's all these certifications out there. So,
You Everyone's got a certification now, and and it's all good things, right? I don't know if I would really put them on my resumes or try to sell them to people because to me they don't really matter that much to the they shouldn't matter that much to the outside people. It's only about me trying to gain more knowledge and me trying to apply what I've gained. I'm not trying to like spend this money and sell it that I spent this money and now I'm smarter because of it and you should work with me. I think that just kind of comes with hopefully the business and the people that you've worked with.
yeah,
I mean, that's my take. I know that like, but I mean, shoot, there's yeah, exactly. There's you can get certified for pieces of equipment, for
yep,
kettlebell training,
yep.
for dumbbell training, for powerlifting, for CrossFit, for whatever. Right? There's 100 million different ways that you can try to specify yourself, I guess. But
I think they're all good pieces of the puzzle, but getting one of those pieces by no means makes you a master of the craft in full.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, all that to say, it is a very kind of saturated space. Everyone thinks that they can coach, thinks they're the best coach, or the works the other way, right? There's some great coaches out there that are a bit hard on themselves. So I think one thing that we were eager to talk about is how would we recommend someone that's looking for coaching go about finding their coach and knowing that the coach they have is a good fit. And in my mind, the framework that I come back to is the framework that I had when I started at that large commercial gym when I moved down here in Columbus. There's, like I said, there was a sales team that helped to get the trainers clients, so they didn't have to go out and do that. And I got to talking to a couple of them, and they talk about I don't know what the actual model name is, but it's basically the Kia model. A client comes to you because they need your knowledge, or they need help with pushing their intensity, or they need help with accountability. So when you're looking for a coach or a trainer, I think the bare minimum is, can they help you to do those three? Do they have some kind of knowledge, right? Whether it's a certification or 2 or 4 years of training it. Can they help push you? Because if your coach can't push you, then what are you paying them for? Again, within safe limits. And can they keep you accountable in that? Does your trainer show up when you have a session? If they can't hit those three as a minimum, don't fucking work with them. You're wasting your time.
Yeah.
But above and beyond that, I mean, there's all of the intangibles, which is, the people side of it, the people element. Do you get along with them? I think a good rule of thumb that's worked for me with clients that I've had a lot of success with is, do I feel like I could go out to lunch with them or go grab a beer with them and not be staring at my watch the entire time like, oh God, when is this going to be over? Would I actually enjoy spending time with them in a setting that's not working out? And for the most part, the people that I feel like, yeah, I could sit down and have a beer with them have turned out to be really great people and hardworking clients, and they've been really, healthy relationships. So those are, guys, I guess those 3.5 criteria that I would tell people to look for in their coach. Again, that's a low bar to set. Do they have knowledge? Can they push you? And will they show up? But I think it does come down to dotting those I's and crossing the T's, the little things.
Yeah, and I have found that in the private setting, when people are paying you out of their pocket,
Mm-hmm.
they mostly want it to be an enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
It's not like college coaching or high school or something where um, that doesn't really matter much, and you have to push them to the points of it's probably going to be a love-hate relationship a lot of the time, unfortunately, and that's just kind of how it is. Because a lot of them are forced to be there. It's kind of like I talk about this with our athletes all the time, but this is some analogy we took from our old place: the draft army and the reserve army. Right?
Volunteers in the draft, right?
That's right. Yep. So if you're a volunteer or you're a reserve or somebody that like chose to be in the army, you made that choice. You made that physical and mental emotional choice to do that, and that's what you're sticking to. Versus the draft is something that you're forced into and you're pulled from. Not doing this or not ever wanting to do this to now you have to do this, right? So the mindset and the change in those kind of things is vastly different. And I talk to my athletes a lot about this because um, I work with a lot of teams, and the teams are forced to be there, right? They're not paying out of their pocket to come see and work with me. So you can tell the difference between a group that has paid and put their time in, and money usually is like a big piece of this, and then their effort and time and everything else into this versus another group that hasn't, and they're not going to give you the same amount of intensity and things usually. So that's always the conversation I have, and that can go right into personal training as well. And the people that are seeking you out and seeking to have somebody like you and those types of things is a lot different than you get chosen to work with this individual from whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that analogy is held true, but again, anytime you paint in broad strokes, there's always exceptions.
Sure.
You and I both know the athletes that were drafted into being there, and gave 110%. And we know people that will pay a lot to come in and kind of drag their feet.
Yeah.
So there are
That's a great
people
point too.
at the extremes of extremes, exceptions that prove the rule. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, you'll always have the people that got to be there, and they show it, and the people that choose to be there and they really step up. But I guess what would you say to people that are looking for their coach or their trainer? What are things they can try to spot or ask or pick apart? What are your go tos if you're trying to direct them to a good coach? Aside from saying, "Hey, I'm right here, pick me, pick me." What would you
Yeah.
say to someone that wants to know what questions to ask a prospective coach? What should they look for?
I think it's like, what are the things that you want from training? That's first off. And then, um, what place will accomplish that for you? Right. So like if I'm somebody that just wants to like move and be in an environment that's like chatty and almost like super social and more of it being that kind of atmosphere, then
CrossFit.
working. Yes, I was gonna say CrossFit, or you could go to Orange Theory, or whatever, one of the group exercise places that like that is what you want. And not to say that we don't have that at our gym too. We have those group sessions and training, and we've had that at other gyms as well. But there's something to be said about like um, if you want certain things from your coach, then it might be important to look into the gym itself and look into the coaches itself and see the background of what they have and what they've done. And maybe if you really want to dive in, you can look into their social media, because a lot of us, like me, I post a lot about weightlifting and training and different things that I'm doing with my own training and my clients. So that would be a good way to kind
I
of
post next to nothing.
but it's there you go. That's a little what's it called? Like a little sponsor for us, right? Because I mean, I post all the time about our everything we're doing and little reels and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of like how I like to approach it. But I think at the very basis, like if your coach doesn't have a background, like if you look them up and they have nothing to show, like what their experience is, or nothing to kind of show their portfolio, for example, I think that's kind of a red flag.
Fair, fair. I like that you mentioned start with the facility. Because if you're a bodybuilder going to a CrossFit gym, it's gonna feel off.
Yeah.
And if you're used to Orange Theory and you go to, I don't know, some Pilates class, you're gonna be like, well, this is not what I'm looking for. So the
Hmm.
environment certainly matters. Um, yeah, definitely finding a trainer that kind of aligns with what you want in terms of how they approach training. I will tell you, there were some coaches and trainers at the first gym when I first moved down here that I was first hired at. Just big old, big buff looking dudes, and obviously great for them. But just because you are buff does not mean you can help other people to get
Yeah.
buff. And some clients would find that intimidating, and some coaches out there say, "Well, tough shit. What are you here for?" Again, it all boils down to what it is that you're looking for. If you're looking for a huge jack dude, great, you found him. He's there. And there were, I think that's another thing that's so interesting to me too is preferences. Like some female clients wanted to specifically only work with female coach, and I mean
Mhm.
there was one there that just cleaned up. Anytime there was a lady that came in that wanted a female coach, right to her. Um, so I mean, yeah, everyone has kind of their own, I don't know, preconceived ideas of what they want
Yeah.
sometimes. Um, I would advise, clients out there that think they're looking for a coach not to just find yes men as coaches, because they exist out there, right? Someone's doing something wrong. Am I doing this right? Oh yeah, yeah, you're crushing it. You're doing great. And in reality, I mean, they're doing it really poorly, and the coach is just
Yeah.
uninformed. So, again, that goes back to intensity. Have a coach that's able to and prepared to call you when you're doing something wrong. Um, yeah, because I think a lot of people just want to hear what they're doing is right, and it's like,
Yeah. And do tryout sessions, and you have to try out people,
yeah,
and you have to see how things work, right? And I think that's an even more important role. Is like if you just start running out of the go with somebody, and they're not the right fit for you,
yeah.
then you just spent a lot of money that you should have probably spent elsewhere, or spent your time doing
Buying
other
a
things.
package of sessions probably. They usually
Yeah.
come in, 5, 10, whatever. Yeah, communication style is another one. You know,
Yeah, and then pain too. I know a lot of people just like will just train through pain, and they think that, or
pain. Yeah,
their coach doesn't. talk about those things and talk about like, hey, how are you feeling? Are you in pain? How sore are you? And it's like, oh, I was crushed, and they didn't have that conversation, and then they got crushed again. And then if you get crushed two workouts in a row, I almost guarantee that you're not going to have that client come back for a third time. You know what I mean? Like unless it's somebody that's exactly what they wanted, which is a needle in a haystack. But
Yeah, communication style. Uh, Talking about pain and kind of being on the same level of expectation of
mhm.
intensity, I think is huge. But yeah, if you're looking for a drill sergeant, I'm telling you, that's not me. That's not me. I've never been one to get in someone's face, slap their back. I mean, if you want it, that's fine. I can pivot to that, but I'm not gonna. Not everyone that walks in is gonna get that treatment, right? And another thing is, I am nobody's cheerleader. I'm not. I'm not. Like I'm. One thing that really bugs me is toxic positivity. Just
Mm,
throwing blatant positivity in the face of anything. You missed all of your December workouts. That's totally fine. We're gonna crush January. Like, no, you missed them. We're nowhere near close to our goals because you missed these days.
yeah,
Step up, perform, or change the plan. Like, or it's like the scale didn't move. Well, did you track your diet? No, I didn't track anything that I ate. That's totally fine. You don't need to track what you eat if you want to get lean. We don't need it. I am no one's cheerleader. I'm here to
yeah,
set very realistic expectations. Like, you want to get lean? Well, what are you eating? I think I eat pretty clean. That's like saying I'm relatively wealthy. What does that mean? Put a number on it. What are your
yeah,
calories? Show me. Tell me. What are your macros? Oh, I don't really know. So then how can we say it's clean? How can we say it's healthy? Let's be a realist about this. Yeah, just I'm not a drill sergeant. I'm not a cheerleader. I think everyone exists somewhere, on that spectrum at different times, and I'll own that. But yeah, if you want a cheerleader, that's totally fine. There's tons of them in the field. If you want a drill sergeant, there's Luke knows them. He's worked alongside many of them. They're out there. You got to find someone that communicates the way that you want to be communicated with. Because I tell you what, everyone just says, yeah, I just really need like a lot of positive vibes, and it's like, I'll try, I'll try, you know.
yeah. You got to set your standard, and we kind of talked about like talking about this today too, and setting your standard for the training that you're going to give to everyone and what it's going to look like, and then from there, when you have that standard, and then let's say they move or let's say they go somewhere else or whatever, they try new things out, they will understand the difference between great coaching and great workouts and programs versus bad coaching, bad workouts, bad programs, right? I think that's kind of a big point of this too. Is that'll take some time, and you have to work with the right people and understand the right things and follow some things outside of probably TikTok and some of the um, different things that you're probably getting your ideas from for exercise and for fitness. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, boundaries are interesting because that's a dimension of my coaching that's changed as I've gone from more in person work to online work. But I think boundaries are huge on both sides of it. Um, you know, from the coach to the client, it's important, right? One boundary, if someone says, I'm real sensitive when it comes to talking about X, Y, and Z, and, like daily weigh-ins are a bit of a trigger for me. I appreciate that honesty. That's a line we're not going to cross then. We're going to go to some other kind of metric that carries weight if you want to get lean. Setting boundaries on the client side is massively important.
yeah,
Setting boundaries on the coach's side, also important. Hey, here are the hours that you can reach me. You can send me messages, at any time here, there, and whatever, but you will get a response within these windows. Those are my working days and times. Or saying, hey, if you're traveling, I can absolutely get you set up, but I need to know by this date so that I have ample time to get all the pieces in place for you to really deliver, what I'm promising to deliver for you. And in person, again, you got to set those boundaries too. Of hey, if you're here 10 minutes or later after the start of your session, you forfeit your spot. If someone else shows up, it's going to them. If someone
yeah,
shows up 11 minutes later, hey, I'm here. You are, but you're not. You signed this. We talked about this. We agreed on however you phrased it. 10 minutes late, you're getting billed for it, and that slot goes to somebody else. Sorry. It's massively important. It's to your point. I
Yeah.
think it's what separates great training from good training. Good training is, oh, you're late. That's fine. You can come in. Of course, that means you can stay late. I don't need to get home in a decent time to have dinner with my family. No worries. And then, you go home and you're angry on the drive home and you don't sleep well. So then you carry that toxicity into the next day because
Yeah.
you didn't set the boundaries. It's not the client's fault. The client's doing what you let them do.
No, that's a great point. I think about that more now than I used to. I feel like I used to get really frustrated at some of the things that I thought it was the client's fault or the athlete's fault. And now looking back on it, I'm like, wow, I should have done this better. I need to think more about how I communicated with them and how I set my standard. And I think that's changed a lot over the last couple of years in this field. And something too, just like I know some some coaches will let their clients just leave their weights around. That's another big one for me. Is like
Oh, yeah.
let's say they did a workout, their dumbbells are just left there. Or bench press, they left the weight out on the bar and everything's just set up and set out and you don't have the time to put all their weights away and nor am I going to do that. I'm never going to put someone's weights away unless they paid me a stupid amount of money. You know what I mean? And just because that I think that is in itself training, putting things away where it's supposed to be is part of the standard. It's part of the training process. And yeah, I think that's a big one for me too.
Putting weights away is huge. If unless it's a one-on-one, meaning just one client and myself, I may put their weights away because I will charge them 3x what I would charge someone for like a semi-private. So in that
Sure.
scenario, again, you get paid in relation to the problems that you solve, right? You're never going to have to make a reservation at Burger King, and you're never going to get in and out of a fine dining place in 10 minutes. I mean, there's different
Yeah.
expectations for those places. So if it's a one-on-one, I know that you're paying me a lot and you have all my
Mhm.
attention. There's a chance I'll put your weights away. There's a good chance I'll probably put them away. Unless we got like 5 wheels on a bar. Then, I mean, at that point, you gotta help out and chip in. But for most people, team training, semi private, it's part of respecting the space. You're coming in using that company's equipment for your gains. Set it up, break it down. And that was something at our old place too, was, we set it up in advance. And it's like, even that, um, it
Yeah.
depends on how many people are out on the floor, right? If we have 2 people to look after, it's a lot easier to set up. If we have 5 or 8 people out there running around doing their program, at some point you're running around to set things up, which is pulling you out of being able to coach. I'm not going to sit here and offer up either I help you set up and break down your weights or I deliver the coaching that you're paying for. I'm never going to draw that line, but I will say put away your own weights, set up your own weights. I'll help if I can, but don't expect it. I'm here to coach. When I was an
No,
intern,
that's a good point.
when I was
Yeah.
an intern, yeah, I'm unskilled labor, so of course I'm going to help set up the weights and break down the weights. At this stage of my career, I am not unskilled labor. I know my worth. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. If you think I am,
Yeah.
and we talked about this last week, we're going to have a talk where maybe this isn't a good match. But you're not going to
Mhm.
just come in here and leave your plates laying around. Um, so putting weights away, that's huge. Something else I think that's massively important is talking about clients notating their own weights.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
That's huge for me. Again, it's something small, dotting your I's, crossing your T's. If you think I'm going to carry you around with a clipboard, again, at some point you're pulling me away from doing coaching. I'm certainly not going to do that at scale when I have 10 people in the room, even 5
Mhm.
people. I'm not going to run around, okay, I'll write in 100 pounds for you. No, grab a pen, write it down yourself. They're your gains. You should care more about them 10x over than me. They're your goals. I care. That's why the structure's in place to get you there. Now you care by writing down what you did. And I like that we used to have a scale, the place that we used to work at, right? Plus or minus or equals. Was it too heavy? Do we need to go down, or do we need to go up, or was it good for next week? I love that. I think people get into a habit of, well, I did my 3 by 10 at 15 pounds, and I feel good with that. And it's like, good doesn't mean anything. Could you have
Yeah.
done more? What does it mean for next week? What's the next step? You know? So yeah, write down your own weights. If you're not, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, and then you can have a conversation with that client afterwards about like the weight and they've tracked and you can look back whether it's on a piece of paper or whether that's on an app. You can look back and say, okay, last week you did 65 pounds for 10 reps. let's start at 65 pounds and see how that feels. And then that might be a conversation too, where they're like, oh, well, actually, it was kind of light. And it's like, okay, we'll move to 70 for this first set. And then you wouldn't have that conversation if you didn't have that piece and you didn't have that standard for them to do that, right? So if you're just going off of what you remember, like I can barely remember what I had for breakfast this morning, and I know a lot of my clients could care less about the weights they're using if they don't write them down, right? So then I think that's a super important piece of how does our training keep evolving, and how do we reach our goals, and how do we, deliver what we said that they were going to get.
Yeah, I tie it back to setting those boundaries is massively important. I think this is a small tangent. I think it was a Terry Crews video. He talks about discipline and self-discipline. Everyone thinks discipline is just punishment and being hard on yourself and beating yourself up all the time, but discipline is setting boundaries because you care about yourself. Or if you have kids and you discipline them, you set a line. Don't do this. Don't go jumping into the oven when it's on. I mean, that's a pretty healthy boundary to set, right? Because you care about them. You don't want bad things to happen. Don't run around with knives. It's a boundary that I've set. Discipline doesn't mean I'm being hard on you. It means I'm setting a very clear line that you
Yeah.
have to respect because I care about you. Same with clients. I care about you. So put your weights away. Set them up. Write down your weights so that you can get closer to your goals. I care about my own discipline. I will not work past this time. You cannot make me. There's no amount that you can pay me. That is off limits time. That's a boundary I don't cross. And you show up late, you're not eating into my time. You're eating into your own. Love you. Let's get to the session. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think we're just a bit too hesitant a lot of times to really just put our foot down. And that's fine to do if you do it with good intentions. Don't just say, you showed up late. I'm not staying late. Well, any client's gonna take that bad, right? They're gonna be like, "Oh, fuck you, man. That's a bad
Yeah.
that's a bad vibe." But if you say, "Hey, I can appreciate you running behind. I hope you're doing well. If you're not, we can talk. Otherwise, let's get to the session and get as much of it in the next 50 minutes as we can." You with me? Who's gonna say no? Who's gonna say no?
Yeah. Yeah, and it depends on your situation too, because I don't know if there's any Ohio Northern football players that are listening to this. Man, that group that didn't travel on Fridays when you wouldn't show up at 6 a.m. and you'd show up at like 6:05, or some of you would be ballsy and show up at 6:10. The rest of that workout, you guys know what I'm talking about, would be pretty hilarious for me, but it would suck for you guys for the next hour. But you got to it's setting the standard and setting the things that you want, setting the things you care about, and like for us, it was just the small things. Like if you couldn't show up on time, like how could I trust you to be the guy to run the ball on fourth down in the end of the game when we're like, this is everything make or break. If I can't trust you to put your toes behind the line when we start a drill, how can I trust you when it's like really time to do something? And yeah, I think that's just like, the double edge of that from clients to, athletes. I think it all has a place and I think it's all important.
To your point, I do agree that little things lead to big things. So if you're struggling with being on time habitually, it's a sign that as a coach, I need to address something with you, right? Either you
Yeah.
don't take seriously the standard I've set in place, or there's something preventing you from meeting that standard, or you just don't care. Like there's obviously a lot of gray. What I do want to make very clear, though, especially to like youth athletes out there listening, and parents and coaches of youth athletes, is that just because someone's late doesn't open the door for physical punishment. Because I know there's a lot of coaches out there. Hey, if you're late, you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and da 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 da.
Yeah.
And that's I think young athletes especially
That's a great point.
going to make
Yeah.
them balance out. Well, do I want to show up late and do these 10 extra sprints, or I could just miss it and have like 20? Maybe I'll just not fucking go. Like
Yeah.
I using physical activity as a punishment, I dislike. There should be consequences to actions,
Mm.
no doubt. But I mean that looks different for everybody. But yeah, I just know coaches out there that are sitting there looking at their clock, just grinning with their athletes being late because it means that they can punish them more. And I think that's also a very slippery slope. So
I'm laughing because that was my life at the college sector a
I
little
knew
bit,
it. I
But
thought.
that's definitely the case with youth athletes. Is like that's a conversation you probably have to have with their parents. Like, hey, if you guys aren't going to take this seriously, there's other times that we can move to, or we're just going to have to like cancel your membership or something because they're not getting the benefit of the if it's an hour session, you showed up 15 minutes late, you come 3 times a week, that's almost an entire session that you've missed now in 1 week,
Yep.
right? But things like that, yeah. But that's a great like distinction because youth athletes, it's parents, there's more people involved. High school, college athletes, a little bit more, but I think there's more of like a standard you're trying to push, especially with coaches, because sometimes it's not coming down from me either. It's coming from higher up, and they want that standard to be set, and they want those things to be initiated in their program. So you're just kind of following that along, and I try to get creative with some of the disciplines that we were doing. There'd be sometimes they'd just be late and I'd be like, just go home, man. Sorry, you missed your workout. I don't know what to tell you. And they'd be like 5 minutes late and they're like, Coach, I'm here. I'm ready to go. I'm like, nope. Sorry. Like, go back to bed. Obviously, like, wait, sleeping in was more important to you. And stuff like that, even, I would say, sometimes it's like, oh man, wow, like I really effed up and I need to reevaluate my scheduling and what I'm doing with my time and what's more important to me, sleeping in or playing football, those kind of things. And sometimes if it's like 10 people, then I'm like, okay, like the whole team fucked up. Like you guys suck. Like I don't know what to tell you. But if it's one guy, like, we'll make it different for each case.
Yeah. Talking about those boundaries and like being late, since we're kind of on that right now. At the first gym that I worked at, that place didn't even sell 30-minute sessions. They were 25-minute sessions. And again, this is my first job. I mean, the ink on my shirt is still drying as I'm waving it around the gym floor. I'm that new. And again, what's a young coach, the newest hire, going to say when someone shows up late to a session? Nope, can't
Yeah.
work with you. Nope, get out of here. I mean, I didn't have that pull, that experience, again,
Yeah.
if you have a full list of clients that are ready to fill in that spot, sure, you can do that. When you're growing your black book, so to speak, I can't get away with that.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here, well, if they're 25-minute sessions and client A comes in 10 minutes late, that means the next one goes over 10 minutes. I have about 5 minutes in between my sessions. So then client B has to get started 5-ish minutes late. And then, I mean, it throws everything off through the rest of the day. And it's like, yeah, at some point I would rather step on a couple of toes and say, hey, you were 10 minutes late. That leaves us 15 minutes late. I'm not eating into another client's time because you can't manage yours.
Yeah.
I would rather step on toes in that way, looking back, than to go back and set off my entire day trying to service that one client, pushing everything else back and just jumbling everybody else's appointments up. It was just chaos, man. But things you learn, right? You don't learn all that when
Things
you
you
start
learn.
in the field. You learn about
Yep.
fucking up a lot of times along the way.
That's not what they tell you when you're going to school, and that's not what they tell you on social media about, those kind of things that you have to figure out when you get into the field. So,
Yeah,
yeah, man.
ain't that the truth? Well, is that a good spot?
That's a good spot. It's a nice day in the heart of America, if you know what I'm talking about. Isn't that what they call Ohio? The heart of America?
I don't know. We're gonna have to fact check that after the episode.
That's fine. It's like 50 degrees today, so I'm about to go out and do something outside.
Gonna do some cardio. Gonna get out and run, Lukey.
Some cardio, maybe do some I like to call Sundays my athletic Sunday. So I like to like shoot hoops or like throw a football or something.
Gross.
Maybe that's athletic Sunday or like and I also do you know who Corey G is? Corey Gregory? Does that name sound familiar to
Not
you?
ringing a bell yet. No.
He's a guy. I think he's from like Granville, so he's not far from Columbus. But he has his own gym. He has his own like supplement line, and he does like walking lunges every day. Have you maybe you've heard of him, maybe you haven't. He does like timed walking lunges, and it's like for 400 meters or like half a mile or something ridiculous. And he tries to beat his time every day. And I've just been kind of messing around with that on Sundays and all walking lunch. Like the first time I did it like 5 minutes straight, and I was destroyed. And then the second Sunday I did like 7 minutes. And I was like, oh wow, I think I'm actually my leg muscles are kind of getting a little bit more defined and like the consistency of that. And then I worked up to like 10 minutes and I was like, this is a small way to add in some conditioning, some more kind of volume into your
To those
into your
listening,
life.
the said principle is a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Specific adaptations to impose demands, meaning If you want to get better at something, fucking do
Yeah,
it.
do more. Yeah.
Fucking do it. I want to get better at running. I think I'm going to take up swimming. What? No. I want to get better at running. Great, go out and run. I want to be a better swimmer.
Yeah.
Great. Dive in. Go for it. Yeah, the idea that we're going to do something else to get better for. That's a whole episode we could get down, but I love to hear that we're getting conditioned and strong, Lukey.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
And you told me you've been rolling around, right? Grabbing people and slamming them, doing fun stuff like
Not
that. So.
not slamming. I've been drilling and practicing my jiu-jitsu. Been working on that indeed. Got a bloody gi to prove it.
Absolutely. You know, sometimes every day's not gonna be your best. So.
True, you ain't lying. I haven't run into one that's my best yet.
Yeah.
Awesome, Lukey.
You're gonna have to take me sometime. Yeah, I'm gonna have to roll with you.
Let's do it.
Then we'll have to talk about that on the pod. That'll be like hilarious.
I cannot wait for that day. I cannot wait.
All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, a little off, I think. I don't know. We'll figure that one out. See y'all later.